altercations.
You're embarrassing yourself right now.
You could sign on to this. The only embarrassment here is you.
Definition of legislative insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over and over.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This week, the American political scene has heated up again, not only because of the prolonged government shutdown, but also due to a rare moment in the halls of Congress. Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries loudly told Republican Congressman Mike Lawler to shut up during a heated argument. The incident has made many people ask questions. What caused the two congressmen, who are usually used to speaking in a formal and procedural manner, to erupt like that? And is this merely an emotional accident or a sign that political division in Washington is reaching its peak? This video is for analysis and reference purposes only, and does not represent any political or media organization. Now, let's summarize the main event. The incident took place at the beginning of the third week of the U.S. federal government shutdown. Context: Congress has yet to pass a spending package to keep federal agencies running, forcing hundreds of thousands of civil servants into temporary furlough. In the halls of Congress, after a press conference, Congressman Mike Lawler, a Republican from New York, approached Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic minority leader of the House. Lawler urged Jeffries to support a temporary budget bill to partially restore government operations. However, the exchange quickly turned tense. Jeffries responded with a sarcastic question. "Did your boss Donald Trump give you permission to do that?" Lawler reacted, and Jeffries cut him off. "You don't need to tell me anything. Why don't you just shut up?" This scene was witnessed by several reporters and quickly spread across social media, making the atmosphere on Capitol Hill, already tense because of the budget deadlock, even more chaotic.
Next, let's take a deeper analysis. First of all, on the surface, the incident between Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Lawler may appear to be nothing more than a spontaneous argument. Two people losing their temper, losing control, and then exchanging harsh words. But if we look deeper, this is the inevitable result of three factors: political deadlock, media pressure, and the prolonged polarization within the U.S. Congress. 1. Political pressure and the role of each side. Hakeem Jeffries is the Democratic minority leader in the House of Representatives, the successor to Nancy Pelosi, and regarded as the face of the new generation of Democratic leadership. He bears a heavy responsibility to defend the Democratic stance while proving his ability to maintain balance in a deeply divided Congress. Throughout the 3 weeks of the government shutdown, Jeffries has repeatedly been placed in a passive position. The Republican Party controls the House, holding power over many spending bills, yet remains internally divided. Some pro-Trump lawmakers want to use the shutdown as leverage to pressure the Biden administration into concessions on social spending policies. Conversely, moderate Republicans, including Mike Lawler, seek a temporary solution to avoid economic damage and protect the party's public image. In other words, Jeffries is facing not just one Republican Party, but a Republican Party deeply fractured within itself. Therefore, when Lawler approached him to ask for support on the bill, Jeffries may have felt that this was not an offer of cooperation, but rather a symbolic act of pressure, forcing him to reveal his stance in front of the media. His harsh reaction, then, was not merely a personal emotional outburst, but a calculated political reflex to protect his leadership image and avoid being trapped by media optics.
2. On Mike Lawler's side, a strategy for political survival. Mike Lawler, on the other hand, is a unique figure within the Republican ranks. He represents a district in New York that leans moderate, where voters can easily swing toward the Democrats if they feel Congress is ineffective. Amid the prolonged government shutdown, Lawler faces direct pressure from his constituents, as many federal employees and small businesses in his district are affected. By confronting and publicly challenging Jeffries, Lawler may have been pursuing two goals. First, to show that he is taking action, that he is fighting to end the deadlock. Second, to create distance between himself and the far-right faction within the Republican Party, which is widely seen as the main cause of the government shutdown. Therefore, the clash between Lawler and Jeffries was not simply a debate, but a moment of self-assertion, each man speaking to his own voters rather than to each other. 3. The perspective of the media and the public. This incident immediately became a focal point in American media. Major news outlets such as CNN, Fox News, The Washington Post, and The New York Post all reported on it with bold headlines, centering on the phrase, "Keep your mouth shut." Left-leaning media argued that Jeffries' reaction was human, an understandable expression of frustration in the face of Lawler's provocation. They emphasized that he had been under pressure throughout 3 weeks of negotiations, while Republicans still lacked a clear roadmap to end the shutdown. Conversely, conservative outlets saw it as an example of Democratic leadership's lack of restraint and arrogance. Fox News called it an embarrassing image of the collapse of civil political culture on Capitol Hill. As for the public, reactions were sharply divided. Some said, at least they're being honest, appreciating that the exchange reflected real emotion rather than scripted speeches. But many others expressed disappointment. They represent the country, yet they behave like two people arguing in a coffee shop. 4. The perspective of political experts. According to several analysts at the Brookings Institution and Georgetown University, the incident reflects how political polarization has reached a boiling point. Such confrontations, they note, show that when dialogue no longer works, people start shouting at each other. Experts emphasize that this is not an isolated case. In recent years, the U.S. Congress has witnessed many similar clashes, from Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene shouting at President Biden during the State of the Union address, to internal party conflicts over the removal of former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. These incidents, together with the Jeffries-Lawler confrontation, illustrate the erosion of congressional culture in America, a place where decorum and civility once formed the foundation of debate. According to experts, when political trust between the two parties collapses, every conversation risks turning into a personal confrontation, and that paralyzes the legislative process. 5. A symbol of a deeper crisis. At a deeper level, this argument symbolizes the crisis of trust in American democracy. People feel that Congress no longer reflects their voices. Lawmakers, instead of representing the nation as a whole, increasingly represent their own constituencies, saying what their voters want to hear rather than what the country needs to hear. Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Lawler, in essence, are not enemies. They are simply operating within a political environment that forces them to choose sides, to fight with words so as not to be perceived as weak. The phrase, "shut up," therefore was not directed solely at Lawler. It was a sigh from an entire political system exhausted by constant confrontation. Finally, let's talk about the impact and consequences. In the short term, the incident has further damaged Congress's image in the eyes of the public. Recent surveys show that only about 16% of Americans trust Congress, a record low. The Jeffries telling Lawler to shut up episode only reinforces the perception that lawmakers are too busy arguing to work for the people. Politically, both sides are trying to capitalize on the situation. The Democrats use it to highlight the chaos within the Republican Party and to blame them for the government shutdown. The Republicans, meanwhile, argue that Jeffries lost his temper, a sign, they say, that Democrats are afraid of losing control of the narrative. In the long run, if this situation continues, the consequences could be serious. The longer federal agencies remain stalled, the deeper the economic impact becomes. The political credibility of both parties will erode among independent voters, the group that will play a decisive role in the next election. And it is not impossible that confrontations like this one might eventually force leaders from both sides to sit down, reluctantly, to reach a minimal compromise to reopen the government. Now we can draw a conclusion. From a single phrase, "keep your mouth shut," we can see a much broader picture of the crisis of trust and extremism in today's American politics. The Jeffries-Lawler incident is not just an argument, it is a mirror reflecting how the political system functions when dialogue gives way to confrontation. The question now is, can the representatives of the people restore mutual respect and work together to reopen the government? Or will America witness more shouting matches on Capitol Hill? What do you think? Was this merely a moment of anger or a sign that American politics has truly reached a breaking point? Share your thoughts below.